I'm Kevin, Kevin Allen, and I drive a 2012 Subaru Impreza WRX hatch in premium. I always forget the special trim in dark gray metallic, 61K. When I was like in middle school, I think. I'll grab a piece here. When I was in like middle school, I was in my like web design and development class, and my teacher, Mr. Pennypacker, was telling us kind of like the "Hey, about me" thing, and he was like, "When I got out of college, I got a signing bonus and I bought this," and it was this picture of this blue bug-eye 2002 wagon with the gold wheels.
The signing bonus?
Yeah, with his signing bonus for like, because he was like doing rock climbing or something. I forget exactly what it was, but I remember seeing that, and I was just like, that's different. That feels different. I don't know. Like I've always liked cars since I was a kid. Like I like NASCAR. I remember my dad would like pause TiVo, which is like old recording. I don't know if you know that, and would trace out cars that I liked on TV so I could color them in and stuff.
That's super cool.
And one of them was like a Dodge Viper. So like I loved the Dodge Viper. I don't know, that car was amazing to me. Seeing this blue wagon on the screen, I was like, I need that. Like, I need that so bad. So when I turned 16, I was like looking around for a car I liked. The problem was my neighbor, who was also in that class with me, a grade or two above me, he had a 2011 hatch because it was like new at the time and his parents were rich. He had a 2011 WRX hatch. And he was like, "Do you want to drive it?" And I was like a hipster kid, so I was like, "Oh, Subarus aren't cool. Everyone wants a Subaru, oh, whatever." He let me drive the car, and like I got out of the car and I was like, "This thing's whatever. I don't care about it. I want to be a drift. I want to drift and stuff." So, but I stepped out of the car and I was like, "Oh my god,
That was so cool.
It's so bad, dude."
You ever play like the dirt rally games?
Yes, a couple times. Yeah, they're really cool. I would love to have like a rig so I could actually like do it properly, but
Or expensive.
they're really
And they're
expensive.
crazy hard to drive. Like,
Exactly, yeah.
You think, oh, it's not that hard, and then the feedback, you're like, skip
Yeah,
it. This can't be
dude.
real.
There's no way it's this hard. And you're like, no, it is. There's a reason why like drivers are athletes. Like my sister asked me recently, drivers aren't athletes. I was like, yeah, they are. Ken Block had like a personal trainer for just like breathing exercises and stuff. So, but out of high school, when I turned 16, it was time for me to like start looking for a car. I had been working for a long time and just saving money, and I was looking at like my mom really wanted me to buy like a pickup truck because like that
Big car safe.
Yeah, big car safe. You know, you get work done, you get to work harder. I was like, yeah, I'm not really into the pickup trucks thing. We looked at like a couple S10s, which I mean they were stick shift, so it was kind of cool to me. And then when I moved out of my mom's, I still didn't have a car because it was like mid-high school. I moved in with my dad, and he gave me the Yaris. So I was like, all right, this is cool enough for me at least. So I was content with that for a really long time. And then I bought my first WRX, which was a 2004 with a 2006 STI swap. And that got... I had that, and that was like my daily. The Yaris just kind of went to the wayside for a little while. It was just parked in my dad's driveway forever. So I was like, oh, this is so cool. This is like kind of my dream car. It was a sedan. It wasn't the wagon, but whatever. It was white, so I was like, ooh, it's like rare. Not really. But I wanted to get into drifting, so I was like, oh, I'll go buy a Miata. And I found a Miata for like $1,300, and it was rusty.
Back when you could get them for $1,300.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Like, dude, $1,300 is like nothing today. It was an '89 Miata. So it was like the first year they made them, and it was Mariner blue, and it was so cool. But I was like, before I drift it, I'm gonna fix all the rust. And I pulled the fenders off, and I started cutting stuff. And I realized I don't know how to weld, I don't know how to paint, I don't know how to do body work. So like I learned a lot with that car. I ended up giving up on it, and I ended up buying a '93 Miata that was black, tan interior. It was an M edition or M edition, which was it just had like leather and like AC. Like '93 was like a commodity, I guess. Drifted that, fell in love with drifting. My WRX got totaled, my first one, and then
You had the WRX and the Miata and the Yaris?
and the Yaris. Yeah, I had all three.
Yeah.
I was like 18. Like it was awesome.
That's a sick lineup, right?
But my dad was like, "Hey, can I drive the Yaris again?" I was like, "Yeah, it's fine." So he had that for the most part. I had the Miata, and the Miata was getting beat up more and more. I sold the blue one. I parted that. I actually gave that one away for free because I was so tired of it. It was just sitting in my uncle's garage. He has like a shop area.
Just torn apart.
Yeah, and he was like, "I need this thing gone." So it was sitting outside. So I asked my friend, I was like, "Hey, do you want this?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'll come pick it up." And that was it. It was gone. So I had the Miata and I had the WRX. I was on 309. I got rear-ended in the WRX and they totaled the car out. So I sold the Miata and I bought the BMW because it was better and it was nice and it was a BMW and it was German engineering and it was supposed to be fast and fun and reliable. It wasn't any of that. It gave me the most problems. Super fun car. Of all my cars, I think I regret getting rid of that one the most, just because I didn't have to care about it.
You just beat it, like throw it wherever, drive it wherever.
If it's raining, I just shut it off, windows down, leave the keys in it. Who cares? Like I literally parked it everywhere, and the keys never left the ignition. It was awesome. But I wanted to buy a newer WRX, and I was like thinking back. I was like, I don't like the VAs. They've grown on me, but I still am not a huge fan of them. And I was like, do I want another blob eye? I don't like the way the Hawkeyes look. The narrow eye, like the bug eye at the time, I was like, those are ugly. I love them now. I would totally own one. So hard to find them clean, and I'd probably want a wagon. But so I'm like looking around, and I was like, well, there's like the '08 narrow bodies, which are really cheap. And the sedans are even cheaper, and it's technically just a WRX. So I was like looking at those, and I was like, no, I need like a little bit newer of a car. I was getting, I was like 21, 22. I was 22 at the time, and I was like, I need like a little bit of a newer, more reliable car, something with a little bit more creature comforts. I don't like heated seats, like cooling seats, heated steering wheel. I just like bare bones cars. If I could get roll down windows, I totally would.
I love that. Yeah.
Dude, they're like that. That was why I loved the Miatas, because they had nothing. It was just like maybe a radio if it worked, and like that was it. So I was like, I need a newer car. So I was like, I'm gonna buy an STI. I'm gonna buy a newer STI. Looking around, they were way out of my price range. They were like, the cheapest one I could find was like $25,000 for a car that was like 8 years old and had 100,000 miles on it and like on its third motor, and it was slammed. And I was just like, man, like all the stock ones were like 40 grand, like $30,000 to $40,000. Like that's just not in my realm of, like, that's not real. So I was looking around. I'd sold the BMW, and I was back in the Yaris because my dad had bought a new car. So I was like looking around, and I found this WRX on Facebook Marketplace for like $4,800, like five grand, and it was just a rolling shell. And I was like, no, like not buying that. I looked at it and I was like, whatever.
It was a huge project.
It was a huge project. I really just wanted a turnkey car ready to go. And then it was like maybe a month later, I saw the same car for $3,200, and it came with a transmission, a 5-speed. And I was like, ooh, it's not an STI, but like, it's newer, and it had heated seats. So I was like, that's where I'm drawing the line. It had Bluetooth and heated seats. So I was like, I'm drawing the line there. And it had a sunroof, which I never use. I've used it in the 4 years I've owned the car. I've maybe used it twice.
Every car I look at, I'm like, oh, it has to have a sunroof. I never
use it. Yeah, I just don't care for them. Plus, slick tops are lighter, a little bit more desirable, I guess. Yeah. Sorry. So I went to go look at it. It was a guy that worked at Subaru at the time, and he was like, yeah, I bought it as a project. I went to go look at the car, and he was like, oh yeah, you know, if I want, he bought it for like to have something that's all-wheel drive in the winter, but it had terrible gas mileage. So he's like, if I want something with gas mileage, he'll drive his like diesel Passat.
Yeah.
I think it's like 50 miles to the gallon. And if he wants something all-wheel drive, he had a truck. So he's like, I just don't need this car. I'm just gonna put money into it and then sell it. So he kind of hooked me up with like the motor and everything. Once I decided, I was like, all right, I'm gonna buy the car, just daily the RS for a little bit longer, and then you know, make this a temporary project and then daily it. So I put the trans back in. He helped me out getting a motor and a harness and all like the odds and ends that it was missing. Put it all back together, and I dailied it for a year before I started just doing stupid shit to it.
Then the motor, yeah.
And then the motor went. So luckily the turbo was fine. So I put the stock turbo back on the new motor. People were like, "Hey, you have it apart. Why don't you just like, you're gonna have to tune it anyway. Just do an STI turbo and injectors, or do something like intercooler." And I was like, I don't want to do the intercooler because I don't want to cut up the front bumper. I wanted to keep it as stock as possible, stock looking as possible.
And it looked stock, dude. That was surprising. Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Surprised me.
That was the goal. So I just put a stock motor back in with the STI turbo injectors, and I upgraded the fuel pump. That was about it, just so it could keep up. Not that it needed it. Outside of that, that's pretty much where the car ended up with me. I don't ever really plan on getting rid of the car. Like, I'm going to keep that until I die.
I don't blame you, dude. That thing is amazing.
Yeah. Something else too. The car, like, I don't know if this is too much information. Just tell me.
No,
if
dude,
you
you're
want me-
good.
Yeah. But like during COVID and everything, I just bought the car. And then, if you want to include this, you can. This is just like a deep dive into that year. It's like the worst year of my life. I turned 23 in like right before in 2019, and I was like, everyone was like, oh, you know that Blink-182 song that's like no one likes you when you're 23.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that's not real. And then like COVID hits, so I just bought this. I bought this really cool car, and I was like, I can't really drive it a lot because the world shut down. No big deal. My identity gets stolen. So like I'm like getting all these credit cards in the mail, and I'm like, what the hell is this? So my stepmom was like, yeah, your identity got stolen. I was like, oh, okay. So I was like explaining this to my at the time girlfriend, and she was just getting annoyed by it. And I was just like, and then like my stepmom like started going through like chemo treatment. So I was like, all right, like what's happening right now?
That's a lot, dude. Especially like being locked down. Like, you
Yeah,
can't
like,
see anyone.
I can't go and see anybody because she's like so high risk. So my girlfriend at the time was like getting rightfully, you know, understandably upset about that. And then I lose my job because of like furlough, and like they just can't afford to pay everybody.
Like you were saying, no one's coming around.
Exactly.
You know?
So I get furloughed, and I'm like jobless. I can't afford this car I just bought. My stepmom is like, she might die. I'm like, oh my God, this is like the first time in my life where like, you know, thankfully I have a very young family, so like I haven't really experienced a lot of loss. It was my first kind of step with that, where I was like, oh my gosh, I promise this does relate to the car. So I get a job at Peruzzi Toyota, and Peruzzi hires me at this one rate, and then they tell me that they can't pay me that rate. And I was like freaked out on them, and I was like yelling at them, and I just leave, and I was like, F you, I quit. It's like day 2, I quit. I was just like, you guys suck, whatever. So I'm like frantically looking for a job, and I eventually work at my first job, which is Springmount, which is like a ski resort. It was my first job. They offered to hire me full time, so I was like really thankful for that.
Did they have business during COVID?
During COVID, they had very little business, but I did a lot of maintenance with them.
Okay,
So like I
gotcha.
worked on like the lifts and snowcats and stuff, and really thankful that they found work to pay me with like a reasonable wage. So then, like a couple months pass of doing that, I'm getting more and more upset at just the world, and I like start to see a therapist. I'm like really like depressed and stuff, and my girlfriend breaks up with me. It was like a really, really nasty breakup.
All that coming
like,
together. And
all
then
of
again,
it.
COVID. So like,
And
you
then
can't
COVID,
go
I can't
anywhere.
do
You
anything
can't-
about
yeah.
it. So I promise this has to have a good story, a good ending too. Like it's not just depressing.
And that's it.
Yeah, right. But things start to pick up. So 2021 happens, and it was like February around that year. I started dating this girl that I worked with, and like she really helped me with like snowboarding and like pushing me to be better. I was working at a place where like people liked me. And I like had a really bad night where like I was like, I don't think I can like keep I can't keep living my life like this. So I got in my car and I was like, fuck it, I'm just gonna drive until something breaks. And that car out there with the engine that's currently in it, beat the shit out of that car. Like I've driven it hard. I like let it on limiter for like such a long time, and then I would just bang gears and let it hit again. I just like ripped it around corners. I was driving like I didn't care, and like the car just took it. The car just that kept taking the beating. Like it should have blown up, and I don't know. That car means a lot to me because I was like ready to be done with everything, and when it should have died, it kept going. And I know like maybe you're not like, I'm not spiritual, I'm not the most religious person in the world, but like that car gave a shit about me when no one else did, kind of thing. So that car means a lot to me, and that's why I don't want to get rid of it. I don't want to give up on it.
And it's like those bonds and like those moments like that,
every time I like was working on that car and like I busted my knuckle and I was like, I hate this car. I was like, I sit there and think for a second. I was like, this car let me beat the crap out of it. Now it's beating the crap out of me. That's fine. That's fair. I'm just gonna let it, do its thing. And like, it has really helped with all of that. But since then, I have a job that I love. My stepmom is cured, kind of. She'll be fine.
Doing better.
Yeah, she's doing way better now. I've got a girlfriend that actually gives a shit about me. I love her. She loves me. I have a car that I love. Like I'm doing things that I actually love, and I attribute a lot of it to that car.
Dude, it's gotta be insane too, because like you got that car as a roller, like you built that car.
Yeah, like I know everything about that car, like every nut and bolt. Like I know where there's rust, I know where there's issues, I know where it's perfect. Like I love doing that. I love putting work in.
That's just a crazy bond.
Yeah, I love that, and I don't think I'll ever get rid of it because of that. Yeah, sorry if that was like really heavy. I bought this car in 2020. It was a rolling shell, no trans, no motor. It was sitting in some guy's garage after he blew it up and he was going to do like an STI swap. But he listed it for a really good price. So I bought it, and it came with a trans, the 5-speed, which is still in it miraculously. And I bought a motor from Subaru, like a brand new, like a remanufactured one, put it in, and I dailied it for about a year. And then I got bored of it. So I did an STI turbo and injectors with like a pro tune just to get it running correctly. I got the access port. What did I do next to it? I had to just do like basic maintenance to it for a really long time. And then I had a NVIDIA N1 on it, which I then later sold because it was a little too loud. So I put the stock exhaust back on. I did the spider headlights, Cobb short shifter. Not really much else. I kind of just liked it how it was for a really long time. And then I was at PMP Automotive they're like up near Makunji. And they had these BC coils that were sitting there for like $300. And I was like, hey, what's wrong with these? And they were like, oh, nothing. They came off of a car that was, like sideswiped or something. They just part out cars all the time. So they were like, oh, it came off a car that was sideswiped, so we don't know if they're bent or anything. So I was like, $300, like, why not? I took a quick look. They all spun. They were all free. None of them were seized. Just picked them up, and I washed them off. None of them were bent. Put it on the car. It aligned great. And then I had 1552s, the Tarmacs. I put those on. They were 18 by 8.5 plus 38, I think, plus 40 maybe. And I liked that for a while. And then they really got dirty because they were white. So then I bought these Conseis because they were kind of the same thing. I didn't really see a lot of these chassis on this car. My friend was super into Conseis, so I bought them in textured bronze. And these are 18 by 9.5 plus 22. I got it aligned. I took it to a track event. It did great. People call these cars like one-track wonders because they overheat, but I never had any issues. Yeah, I aligned it. I have -3.5 in the front and -2.5 in the rear. Yeah, that's about it for everything that's done to it right now. I got plans for it in the future, but right now I'm just kind of enjoying it for the rest of the summer, and then maybe we'll see what next summer has. So that's, yeah.
I heard you stall it too when I was.
Oh man, I was really hoping you didn't hear that. I was just like, I was focused on like cross traffic, and I was like, oh man, I'm just making excuses, but like I was like, oh man, I really hope I don't. And then like I just let the clutch go in first, and I was like,
dude, I had earbuds in, and it just cut. I was like, what happened? And then I heard it crank. I was like, oh, he stalled it.
oh man, the microphone did me dirty.
I wouldn't have heard it if it wasn't for the mic.
I looked too. I immediately looked. I was like, oh, you didn't hear that. Thank God.
Yeah, I love that Subaru Rumble so much.
It's so nice. It's literally just a stock exhaust too with a.
You can make a left into that, or at the Sunoco, not into that. How many miles do you have on this thing?
So this motor has.
This motor?
Yeah, sorry. This motor has, like, 10,000.
That's pretty fresh.
Yeah, but the chassis has 145, I believe, 147 maybe, somewhere around there.
And you said it's what? It's 6 motor?
Either 5th or 6th. I'm not really sure. I have a lot of paperwork from a lot of different motor installs on this car. But yeah, no, I put one motor in when I bought it, and then like I said, it blew up again because it's a Subaru, and I put this motor in. So I don't know. I never really felt the need to go built because I wasn't doing anything necessarily with it. I'm still going straight.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll tell you when it's right. It's pretty much just straight. But it rides like really smooth for being on the coilovers.
Yeah, thank you. I wanted to make it ride as stock as possible, and then I wanted to go lower and lower and lower with it. So I've been stiffening up the coilovers, but so far, like, it feels.
I was gonna say I'm surprised. Yeah. Like that bump that we were coming up on, I thought we were gonna hit it.
Yeah, like it actually feels really nice for like what they're at. I think I have like 16 or 18 adjustment points, and I think I'm on like 12 of like towards stiff. So, but yeah, no, I could not be happier with how BCs ride. A lot of people told me that they ride like shit, or it's going to be super stiff.
It's been like 50-50 with BCs.
Really?
Whatever, yeah.
I've had BCs on a lot of other cars, and like they've felt stiffer, but for some reason these feel great. I have no issues with them at all.
The ones on my buddies are super stiff, but these feel
really.
Complete, but I mean, it's the same coilovers on the same car.
Yeah.
But these feel completely different. But that's, I guess, just like all the adjustments that come with it. Like,
yeah.
This feels dialed in.
I spent so much time with what I had for the suspension style, like OEM wise, because it's literally just, I don't have any sort of like suspension components. It's literally just coilovers. But I spent days, my friend and I, just dialing in the suspension so that it was as close to OEM as possible. I'm also like surprised too because I have Group N motor and trans mounts and then a white line shift kit, and like it don't get me wrong, it shakes a little bit more, but it feels great. Like, I don't know, it's awesome. Wish this Jeep would get out of the way. Is that a Jeep? It is a Jeep.
Yeah. There's gonna be a left turn coming up soon.
Okay.
That'll be a sign.
Cool.
But no, dude, it rides great. And it sounds amazing. I always love that Subaru.
I know, dude. It's awesome. Like, when I did it, my friend was like, hey, you gotta get your exhaust to be louder. And I was like, oh, okay, how do I do that? And he's like, get rid of the muffler. So
it's gonna be this left.
This left here? Okay.
It's a little farther up, but the sign's just letting you know what's coming up. Right at that church, that sign.
Oh, okay, I see it. Way early. Here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is also kind of a fun road too, though.
I don't think I've ever really been back here. Oh my gosh, that guy almost rear-ended us. Jeez. I don't think I've ever been back here. It's crazy. I grew up around here.
It sounds good, dude.
Thank you. It does, I'm sorry, I also should have mentioned earlier, it has straight cut second and third gear.
Is that what that?
That's that whine
okay, 'cause I was
noise.
gonna
Yeah.
Say, it sounds like second and third.
Yeah, second and third. Fourth and fifth are stock. First is stock.
So why only second and third? Is that just because that's like really where you're gonna be driving it on the street?
Pretty much. I'm assuming there was like another.
You were not the one that did it.
I'm not the one that did it, no,
Okay.
but I did a little bit of research. I forget the company's name, but they make gear sets, and they come as like first through fourth, second and third, second through fifth, or second through fourth, or something, and then all 5 of them, or all 4 of them, or something like that. It was just to try and strengthen the 5-speed. So far, knock on wood, this 5-speed's been all right.
I've heard that the 5 speeds can't hold too much.
Yeah,
power.
dude.
Yeah.
When I was looking into these cars, I was like, a lot of people were like, "Oh, the 5 speeds are made of glass." And I was like, "Oh man."
How
But,
much roughly do you think you're pushing right now?
I think it's when I did the STI turbo and injectors. I think it was just over 300, but I just say 300. Wheel, yeah.
Wheel.
Yeah. On the stock 5-speed is actually crazy. So I baby this car. I like barely get into boost, 8 pounds. I think it's, my max is 15. I rarely ever see 10 to 11 daily driving it when I daily it. But yeah, no, this car has been awesome so far. Knock on wood.
I was gonna ignore the whine too because I was like, maybe I shouldn't ask. And then you're
Oh,
like,
yeah.
They're straight cut gears.
Yeah, it's the only issue I have with it is it's a little annoying. The sound sometimes I mostly like
good.
it. And then sometimes second and third are hard to get in and out of when it comes to downshifting, upshifting, whatever. But just like overall use of them, they are a little annoying after a while, which is why I don't take this car on like far trips anymore. Oh.
I didn't notice this before, but what assembly went here?
So this was there used to be just vents here. They were kind of like these vents on the side. And I wanted to run AFR and boost. And I had the boost ready, like that was all hooked up, ready to go. And I found this company, Monkey Bone, that used to make these, and they don't anymore. Which way do you want me to go?
Turn right.
You want me to go right? Okay.
Yeah, like into this lot right
Okay.
here. And I'm just gonna loop around and go back. Or we can take 309 off. Your preference?
Hey, let's take it back. Why not? That was a fun road, actually. Maybe we'll get less traffic. But I found this company, Monkey Bone, that did this cool center vent, and I'm not like a huge fan of gauges, so I don't really like to run a lot of them. So the 2 was nice, and then my AEM crapped out on me. It's like the 3rd one I've had. I'm just not a fan of them anymore, so I just haven't gotten around to replacing them.
Where I've heard like 50-50 on. Some
Yeah.
people swear by them, some people are like they're just cheap crap.
Yeah, I'm more on the side of they're just cheap crap now. Shit.
This thing probably handles great too, huh?
Oh my god, it's awesome. I'm so happy. I was like a non-believer in alignments. I know it sounds weird, but like people were like, "Oh, once you get it aligned, it'll handle so much better." And I was like, "Yeah, okay." I'm coming from a BMW drift missile that was always handled like trash. So I'm like, alignments don't do anything. I had like 5 degrees of camber on the front, 3 in the rear on that car. And then I got into this car, threw the coilovers and wheels on it, and just drove it. And I was like, oh, whatever, it pulls to the right now, I don't care. And then I got it aligned, and it drives better than it did on stock suspension. And I'm like, oh my god, they were so right. Ugh. I love this car so much. It was like my attainable dream car for a long time. I really wanted an STI, but when it came... The hatch specifically, yeah.
The hatches are nice. Wide body hatch at that.
Wide body hatches are beautiful. Don't get me wrong, I'm not the typical Subaru guy who is going to shit all over narrow bodies, because while, yes, they do look nerdy and they do look a little they can look nice if you put effort into them. I've seen nice ones before, and I refuse to let people shit on those cars because it's the same car, it just looks a little off. You know?
Dude, but do they make narrow body hatches?
They do, yeah.
They did?
From
I feel like
08
this car
to
looked,
or
it was
09.
supposed to be wide body. Like it,
Absolutely, yeah.
100%. This is the only way I see these cars.
In 2011, when they did the facelift, I was in middle school, and I was like obsessed with WRXs, but I really liked the blob eye, and like that I would have said was my dream car at the time. But seeing the hatch go from the narrow body nerdy face to the wide body and the facelift, like a lot of people, you know, they don't mind like the 08 to 10 STI face. I hate it. I think it's the ugliest thing in the world. When they gave the WRX the STI's face, I was like, oh my god, this is the best. It's the most beautiful car I think Subaru has ever made. I just don't think there's a better car on the road. That's just my preference, but
Yes, these are harder to find too.
I think they are. Yeah. Whenever we have one come through the shop, it's always like a spectacle for those who like Subarus. So.
Because my buddy, it's the same thing. He wanted an STI. But WRX came up. Oh, that you can't pass on that.
Yeah. I mean, listen. When I was looking for, I wanted a 11 to 14 STI, and I wanted it limited in World Rally Blue, and that is still like definitely a goal car for me that I'll own eventually, just not right now. But when I was looking for it, I was realizing like a really nice one is hard to come by, and
Look at this guy.
he was just dumbfounded.
He was admiring.
Yeah, right. But when I found this car, it was listed for $4,800 as a rolling chassis without a trans. And then I was like, oh, that's so cool, but I really don't want a project right now. I want just something I can get in and drive. And then I saw it for $3,200 dropped with a trans, and I was like, I can't not, man. So
it's worth it at that point.
I found a motor, rebuilt it, picked up the car.
You
and
rebuilt
then,
the motor yourself?
Yes.
Oh,
yeah.
shit, okay. See, that's my next level. It's like I want to learn how to do stuff like that, because I'm still on like just throwing parts and stuff. But like,
yeah.
I know, especially with the E36, I was like, that motor's probably gonna go any day.
Dude, seriously, if you get like I don't know, like an N52 or an M50 motor, I guess the M50 is the V8.
A lot of people swap the S50 and the S52, the M3 motors, and the E36 compact, and they're.
Dude, seriously, if you buy one of those motors, like find it like just a long block, and then just take your time assembling it, you'll learn so much. That's how I did it. Like, yeah, I picked up it was a K20. I didn't ever put it in anything, but I was just like, I want to learn how to build engines. So I bought a K20 block, and I just built it, and then I eventually ended up selling it just for kind of what I had into it. But the point was, I was like, I just want to learn about building engines. So when it came to like this car, I was like, oh, I already know most about that. So
I thought you were gonna stall it again there.
yeah, I don't know. It's idling weird. It's been doing that recently. I'm not exactly sure why. I was trying to adjust my idle earlier. The AC on, it seems to be worse. Yeah, that's weird. But it doesn't, it's like not going down on the tack. I don't know. I'll worry about it later.
It still drives.
Yeah. Drives great. It doesn't have consistent knock, so I'm not worried about it.
Dude, this thing's definitely fun.
I love this car so much. Can I go in this way? Yeah.
Let's go on this side.
It's not a pain to drive. It's quick. It's not fast. It's quick.
The clutches on these things aren't stiff either.
No, they're nice. Yeah, that was like kind of the selling point for like an Evo or an STI. It was a lot of people said like, oh, you know, the Evos have such a heavy clutch. They're such a pain to drive. So I was like, oh, all right, STI it is then.